And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Hi there, I'm National Weather Service meteorologist Peter Chan, and this is your Alaska Aviation Weather Outlook on Sunday, July 27th, 2025. And to set things up as of this Sunday, we have an area of high pressure not just at the surface, but in the mid and upper levels of the atmosphere over the Aleutians and the southern areas of the Bering Sea. This ridge is going to hold through midweek and advance eastward a bit toward the southwest coast. So that's going to, in some cases on the north side of the ridge, that's going to keep more of a westerly flow of air coming in along at least the areas of the lower Yukon coast northward, as trough energy early in midweek will work its way across the far northern mainland and the Beaufort Sea. Meanwhile, we have a low pressure circulation that has slipped south of the Gulf here in the North Pacific. It will remain here, but eventually some moisture is going to be pulled back later Monday night, Tuesday into Wednesday across the Panhandle. So expect some more showers pushing up into the Panhandle there, as I say, later Monday night starting on Tuesday. And there will be some breeziness with that feature as it lifts north. Ahead of it, some stronger winds could cause some turbulence along the southwest areas here of the Panhandle, Prince of Wales Island, and especially the areas along coast. Meanwhile, IFR conditions persist over much of the Bering and Aleutians and west coast simply because this is a moist, warmer air mass that's over the cooler waters of the Bering, and that's the perfect ingredient for low stratus clouds and areas of fog. And that'll be the case Monday morning along the Chukchi Sea coast, Bering Strait, all along the YK deltas westward to St. Matthew, the Pribilovs, and the Aleutian chain. Interior VFR conditions expected, especially eastern half of the mainland and in through the Panhandle. At least another day for Monday should generally have VFR conditions, and along the Gulf Coast. Now, Monday afternoon, there could be a few thunderstorms redevelop from, the far northern Copper River Basin, eastern Alaska range on up toward Fairbanks and the Yukon Flats. Further west, again, we have this moisture spreading across the interior that initially came in today on Sunday, and along the coast IFR conditions will persist. Arctic coast, Chukchi Sea coast down here all the way along the YK deltas, and again much of the Aleutian chain. For Tuesday morning, notice there's that arm, that trough rotating from the low circulation down here in the North Pacific, so there's some IFR conditions off of the outer coast there of the Panhandle, but it could bring some light showers up through this area here as we go through the day Tuesday, and a little breezier conditions west coast, Arctic coast, Chukchi Sea coast, Aleutians, again all IFR with some areas of low stratus and fog at times, and again the moisture spreading inland. It's going to get rather wet along and north of the Alaska range here for the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday time frame. So again, this area here will see at least MVFR conditions, maybe locally IFR if you have some terrain and where the ceilings tend to get a little lower, sometimes coming through some of those gaps. Tuesday afternoon, still a small chance of an isolated thunderstorm, eastern Alaska range, upper Tanana Valley, north end there, Wrangell, St. Elias Mountains. IFR conditions staying just off of the Panhandle coastline, though some MVFR conditions with those showers should spread up into areas of the Panhandle. Again, MVFR conditions with areas of rain. This may be adjusted, but you're going to have that overspreading along and north of the Alaska range here Tuesday, Wednesday into Thursday, and then along, again, all the areas, Arctic coast, Chukchi Sea coast, west coast, down into the Aleutians, including St. Paul. We expect IFR conditions there during the day on Tuesday. So on Monday, Anaktuvuk Pass, VFR becoming MVFR as we go through the day. Adigan Pass holding on to VFR, but there could be an isolated thunderstorm pop-up in vicinity in the afternoon. Lake Clark, Merrill, as we go north, more in the way of MVFR conditions developing along the Alaska range. And Monday, Rainy Pass as well as Windy Pass should become MVFR. Isabel Pass should stay VFR for Monday, but there could be, again, an isolated thunderstorm develop either side in vicinity of Isabel Pass. And same thing with Tasta Pass. Generally VFR conditions on Monday, but a scattered shower, isolated thunderstorm could develop either side or through the pass there. Tanita Pass, generally VFR conditions Monday, same thing. Portage Pass and Northern Panhandle, Chilkoot and White and much of the Panhandle will enjoy another day of VFR conditions. Looking at the freezing levels, the surface freezing line is way up along and just off the Beaufort Sea coast. Otherwise, the warmest dome of air that remains, there's a couple of them. We have some warmer air up here. The little ridging that was along the Alcan border shifts into the Yukon Northwest Territories and begins to shrink, still above 10,000 feet in this area of the Yukon. We get back to the west, the ridge that was out here still up at 14,000 foot freezing levels, that dome of warmer air over the Aleutians. But again, when you have that southerly flow on the backside and the westerly flow coming in like this, that creates the low clouds and stratus. It's a warm air mass. And this high is going to shift eastward a little bit before kind of weakening and flattening out during the midweek period by the time we get into Thursday and Friday. And then some trough energy is going to come across Chukchi Sea, Arctic coast, northern part of the mainland, and that's going to help keep this westerly between the high there and the low pressure trough. That's going to keep more of a westerly, west to east flow of moisture coming across the interior. That's why the wetter weather with some lower ceilings are going to be likely there. Monday could be some icing above 13,000 feet in advance of that trough that's rotating back to the north and west. Otherwise, in the interior, if you do encounter some moisture and thicker cloud cover above 13,000 feet, and then way out here south of the central Aleutians above 16,000 feet. So the freezing levels are quite high in this warmer air mass. And you can see the donut circulation of the winds at jet stream level, 30,000 feet, very clearly down here in that low in the North Pacific, just south of the Gulf. And then we have the trough that wraps around it. We have west-northwest flow bearing straight into the Seward Peninsula, western interior, 60 to locally 80 knots there in eastern Russia, 700 millibars, 9,000 feet. There's that broad circulation around this low. So that belt of winds pulling up toward Haida Gwaii and the outer west-southwest coast of the Panhandle, including Prince of Wales Island, Sitka, and then back out into the Gulf. Meanwhile, we have a west-northwest flow generally coming right across the interior, strongest out over the northern Bering. And finally, at 3,000 feet, you can see where the trough arcs along this low circulation in the North Pacific, and some of that wind aloft at 3,000 feet, 30, 40 knots, coming on up in there toward Dixon Entrance, Haida Gwaii, and Prince of Wales Island Monday afternoon. Further west, trough energy coming into the northwest Chukchi Sea coastline, southwesterly flow locally 35 knots, Lisburn Peninsula up toward Wainwright, and then here's that high circulation again, keeping that west-northwest flow coming in across the central interior. But this is a warm high. And as far as turbulence goes on Monday, we could find some moderate turbulence along and say off of the western, southwestern coast of the Panhandle, Haida Gwaii, surface to 6,000 feet. Out to the west, St. Lawrence Island could have some moderate turbulence, surface to 4,000 feet with that northwest flow aloft, and then back out here with the south-southwest flow, surface to 3,000 feet, way out toward the entering the western portion of the Aleutians. So that's the way things are shaping up aviation-wise here for the early week, and I'll have more details coming up as the pattern progresses.